What's up, Degenerate Nation? Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the college basketball midweek slate show. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as they will each and every Tuesday afternoon, my fellow BBOC co-hosts Mike Calabrese and Tanner McGrath. This episode will be a little quicker. It's always going to be quicker than the one later in the week. This will be a tad bit quicker than it will moving forward because we will usually take a conference. We'll pick a random conference out, each pick an overvalued, undervalued team. We'll do that starting next week, but we'll go through a couple spots we have circled on Wednesdays and Thursdays card, talk about some high-level topics right off the bat, both the good and the bad. So let's start there. I guess, we'll start with the good. I'm going to go, and this I think will lead into yours, Calabrese, is a guy who helped me get to the window single-handedly, in addition to some three-point variance, I should say. Javon Small, incredible game against Iowa State and that defense. The amount of tough shots, the amount of timely shots that he hit was unbelievable, and he's been great, potential All-American, and what West Virginia has been able to do with some of their injuries. I don't think DeVries is coming back, which I think really hurts their offensive upside and ceiling. But a lot of that is just on Small. Defense has been great. You got to give DeVries credit there, and I think that's what you kind of want to touch on, Calabrese.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the game against the Cyclones, essentially they were daring, their perimeter weapons to make shots without Momcilovic on the floor. It's not just the shots he's knocking down, but the spacing. And you could see it. They were just, playing off of Lipsy. They're like, go ahead and beat us. And he couldn't do it. And it's not just him. Like, they have a real problem to solve in this, let's call it, month period without Momcilovic in the lineup. What are they going to do to give opposing teams fits in terms of what they're running? Because as of right now, it seems like the book is out. DeVries is obviously a phenomenal coach and he had a great game plan, but this is something that other teams in Big 12 play can just steal and use against him. As far as his son coming back, it doesn't seem likely, and they've kind of been mum. In terms of any news coming out of Morgantown, I do think they're going to try their best to see if they can back channel a clarity, at least some kind of semi-decision from the NCAA. Is he going to get that medical red shirt or not? I'm just hopeful. Maybe there's some kind of miracle. Maybe there's a bionic shoulder in the future for his son, because I agree. If he is in this offensive lineup, all of a sudden they have Final Four ceiling potential. But either way, all of a sudden now they're going to be a top 4 or 5 team in the Big 12 moving forward. And when you look at KenPom, one of the best home court advantages in the entire country. So they're going to be a difficult, tough out no matter who's on the floor with this coaching staff and with Javon Small, being the straw that stirs the drink.
Yeah. Tanner, you got anything on the ears?
I think they have the best home court advantage now. I think KenPom recently updated it, and I think Small also is top
I have them
10.
neck and neck with Texas Tech.
Do you? Yeah.
For a big game. Both of those
I think Small also snuck into KenPom's top 10 player of the year ratings. He's been amazing his entire college career, and I'm ecstatic that he gets to work with a coach like DeVries, who's just miracle worker.
Yeah. I'll throw in, speaking of coaches, before I get to you, Tanner, is Travis Steele has done a really good job with this Miami, Ohio team this year. And, they've won 7 in a row. It looks like that's going to be them and Akron as the class of the MAC, because I don't know. And look, Cam Kraft, the Xavier transfer, did nothing the past 2 games, and they pick up 2 road wins, including one at Kent State. I don't know what's going on with Kent State. I mean, granted, they can't make a shot, but maybe that doesn't last forever. They don't profile as a great shooting team, but they're shooting like 21% from 3 in league play, but they're under 25% on the season, which is, I think, for dead last or second to last. But there's just something wrong with them. I mean, they gave up 94 at home to Western Michigan. This is supposed to be a defensive first team. But look at their home games this year. They barely beat Heidelberg 84-80, which is bizarre. They lose to Ball State. They lose to Western Michigan. They lose to Miami of Ohio. They barely beat Niagara. They beat Niagara by 1 possession. I have no idea what's going on with Kent State, but I got to give credit to Travis Steele and Miami of Ohio because that was an impressive win at Kent State. You expected a desperation effort from the Golden Flashes after just getting thoroughly embarrassed at home, and you can't give up 90 plus to Western Michigan at home. So some credit to Miami of Ohio, who this Saturday will travel to Akron. We'll see if both teams can take care of business. They should. I mean, they'll both be substantial favorites and set up an undefeated clash in the MAC. But Tanner, where are you going for some positive for this week?
Yeah, I want to hop on this bandwagon as early as possible and become the biggest advocate for this as I possibly can. And that's the 2-bid Big West. Big West ball has been cinema this year. It has been awesome. Ty Johnson for UC Davis is one of the most entertaining point guard ball screen orchestrators in the nation. UC Riverside's Barrington Hourgrass, he's averaging over 20 per game. He just dropped 40 the other night in a road upset of the Tritons. Keontae Jones for CSUN, he's averaging 3.5 steals and blocks per game, on top of 9 rebounds, on top of shooting 45% from deep. Hawaii's still running the deepest drop coverage in the nation. They're 12-6. With my man Tanner Christensen, he's averaging 12-7. And the league's worst team, Cal Poly, did upset Stanford in the non-con. I think there's depth to this league, but it really comes down to the top 2 squads. UC San Diego, the Tritons are 15-4. They've already upset Utah State in Logan. They took San Diego State to the wire at Viejas. They're 58th in the net. They're tough to scheme for on defense because they switch between this like matchup zone and this aggressive switching man-to-man. Utah State was clueless in their matchup. I think they scored like 0.8 points per possession. The Tritons ranked 4th nationally defensive turnover rate. Hayden Gray is leading the nation with 3.7 steals per game. They're fun on offense because they run this up-tempo spread scheme, a lot of interchangeable ball handlers and shooters. Tate Jones is the guy that stirs the drink, but their two-way versatility is just so impressive. I want them in the tournament, but Irvine is a wagon. They rank 8th nationally in defensive efficiency, switching between this like hyper-disciplined drop and a jumbo 2-3 zone. Like most drop coverage squads, they're awesome at defending the rim, good in their catch and shoot denial. But I implore you to read this piece on their defense written by Will Warren at Stats by Will and co-signed by my friend Matthew Winnick. The Eaters allow the highest rate of unguarded catch and shoot jumpers in the nation. Over 63% of opponents' catch and shoot jumpers come unguarded, but they
guard them weird too. They guard them oddly.
Yeah, they lead the nation in points per shot allowed on those attempts, though. And you'd think, how is that possible? One would think regression. But if you dig into the scheme, this is something they do every year because Russ Turner and this coaching staff are just elite at orienting their game plan around only allowing jumpers to bad shooters. It's incredible. The stat that I read in that article was 79% of all open catch and shoot 3-point attempts allowed have gone to shooters who shoot less than 30% from 3. That's how you game plan. On the other end of the court, they're an awesome
Don't they never like contest with their hands either?
Yeah, I think they just leave like bad shooters just wide open. They just don't care. And then I think they sometimes run like a box and one where they give one attention to the other team's best shooter and they just make it impossible for you to get 3-point attempts off. And it's just, it works, man. It's a really smart game planning.
And they always have 7-footers at the rim. And I think there might've been one year where they didn't, but they're going on something like 9 out of 10 years where they rank in the top 10 nationally in 2-point defense.
Yeah, and this year it's I forget how to say his last name, Ben Lukton. Who is probably the Big West Player of the Year. I mean, he's great as a rim protector, but also you can move the ball through him as a hub and work it around well. They get to the line at will. They're 17-2. One of their losses came against Oregon State, one of the biggest overperformers in the early going. I was so impressed when they came back down 14 in the second half. Shorthanded on a cross-country holiday road trip against Belmont. They're 43rd in the net. I want them in the tournament too. I think they could win a game, maybe 2. And I have power rated the teams I most want to bet on Irvine against in the first round, maybe in like a 12-5 or an 11-6 matchup. Number 5, Irvine over Purdue. Feed me Matt Painter. Number 4, Irvine over Ole Miss. Those ISO creators would be lost. Number 3, Irvine over Texas A&M. They cannot hit a jump shot, and they won't against Irvine. Number 2, Irvine over Louisville. They can only hit jump shots, and you can't do that against Irvine. And my absolute favorite, please let me bet this in the tournament, Irvine over Memphis. Russ Turner would have Penny Hardaway and those mistake-prone guards in hell. I need to see Irvine up 10 in the second half. while the cameras zoom into Penny with just the most painstakingly blank look on his face. I love the Big West. I want them to be a 2-big league.
I mean, it could happen. You see San Diego. I love the trade. They really hurt themselves the last week, though.
Yeah,
because losing to Riverside, losing at home to Irvine, it's going to be tough. But yeah, one of my biggest bets ever in the tournament which was like one of those a matchup like you're describing is when UC Irvine played Kansas State. That was a sexual matchup. So yeah, if you get the right matchup with either of these teams, I think it's going to be a great betting opportunity. But yeah, Big West, definitely worth checking out. The problem for Hawaii is with the way that they play defense. It's just, it's still somewhat true this season, but there's a lot of teams that it doesn't match up well with some of the teams in the conference, like the structure of their defense and what they want to encourage. Especially like last year, you had all these guards that could just crush you in the mid range, and it just doesn't work for Hawaii in that particular league. But
yeah, they funnel to the dribble.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the bad from the week that was. My rant of the week is going to be ULM. This is just a repeat of Texas Tech against Iowa State. I have multiple starters go down with injuries or foul trouble. ULM, I thought they were cooked. They lose their starting backcourt. This is a team that goes like 6 deep. They lose their starting backcourt in like the first couple minutes of the game of injury. They somehow come back in the second half. And I can't believe I watched this whole game. ULM. You want to talk about bad basketball. They come all the way back, and once they get their starters back, they finally take the lead with under a minute to go, and then they miss their one-on-ones. Louisiana's 60% free throw shooters make them all, and they die. So I should have just turned it off, but I kept it on for hope. They did come all the way back. That was super annoying. Other things, Sparty got so lucky against Illinois with that whistle. Was not really impressed. Was looking like to see them against the top tier opponent. And yes, they won at home, but came away actually less impressed than I thought I'd be if they won that game. And here's by the way, Miami. I got to get Miami in here in the bad. This team is trending toward worst defense for a power conference team of all time. I mean, is that where we're headed? They scored 75, or what did they score? And they lost by 40 at home. It's SMU.
I think it was 117-75 was the final score. Yeah. I
mean, they're just like a free fade. It's like a free fade square. I'm too dumb to ever actually just do that. I actually was like, is this the bottom of Miami? Thank God I didn't bet them. Like it is. Where is the bottom for this? Miami now adjusted defensive efficiency. If we just look at KenPom, 341st. I mean, it's embarrassing. They haven't covered since. Against Presbyterian, maybe. It's been ugly. And now they hit the West Coast swing for Stanford and Cal. We'll see if they show up. I am not sure. I want to catch the falling knife with Miami anytime soon. But there's a bottom and there's a price for everything. So we'll see.
Well, Stanford just came off that win over UNC, didn't they?
Yep.
Is that a good letdown spot? I'm not going to do it. I'm too scared.
I can't. I got to see something first from Miami. Just any poll. I mean, you might look smart catching the knife here, but like if you tried it the last 5 times, you look like an idiot. So, I'm not sure. That was a bad loss for Carolina. They were, I think, starting to turn the corner with some of the lineup changes and that they've made because they just have nothing inside. It's like, hey, let's go smaller and more guard heavy, and they end up losing to Stanford. Now they go to Wake. You got road games against Pitt and Duke coming up in the next week or so. Where does Carolina sit on the bubble? Let's see. I mean, they should be in as of now, but I mean, if they lose like 3 or 4,
Bracket Matrix has them as the top 10 seed right now, which gives them a little bit of wiggle room.
Little leeway, but that Stanford loss is going to hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
That kind of takes away some of your margin for error. And
They're
then my
1-6
yeah,
in quad one opportunities too. That's tough.
yeah, they just have that UCLA win. That's all, which started to not look as good until UCLA's last game. We'll see what UCLA does. Here's a question for you. I'll ask you guys both. Which one of these three teams these are teams that have been mainstays at the top of college basketball for the last couple of seasons, led by UConn. Three teams that have had just as much success as any team in the country that I just haven't been overly impressed with. Who do you trust most to go the furthest in the tournament between UConn, just this year, UConn, Houston, and Gonzaga? Like Houston and Gonzaga, yes, I know Houston won by 1 at UCF. What is their best win this year? I don't know. Gonzaga can't close out a game. UConn's offense now looks like, I thought it was their defense that was an issue. I know McNeely's still been out, but definitely not the same team. So Cowboys, I'll throw it to you first. Who do you trust more out of those three? Like if you had to put a bet on it, who's going further?
I think this one you gave me the right 3-pack because I immediately gravitate towards Houston. I understand that they've dropped a lot of close games, but at least from that pairing, if you're talking about the last couple minutes of a game, at least I can close my eyes and picture Houston getting stops defensively and winning that way, as opposed to some of these other teams. I'm totally out on the Zags. It's not just the losses, but the way in which they're losing. And I think they just, unfortunately, they were overrated, early in the season. I think we were giving a lot of credit to Mark Few for what he's done over the course of his career and some of the promising offensive numbers early. Once they've run into some teams that either have experience against his system or have better athletes on the perimeter, they've run into some issues. So I'm out on the Zags. So I think this one's Houston. The UCF game, yes, like they did everything they could at the end to give it away, including that foul, getting that whistle, giving them another look at it. But you saw what happened there. Defensive players were able to make a play and win them the game. So that would be my answer. Particularly in a tournament setting, I trust that coaching staff to be able to put together a great defensive game plan and execute. They so desperately miss Shed being a playmaker, being somebody late in the shot clock, bail them out. Like when they're not running their stuff at a high level, at least they had him. Cryer's not that guy. Cryer is a Robin at best in a Batman Robin situation. He is not an alpha. So in terms of a deep run, I'm out on Houston, but to get at least one win in the tournament from these three teams, I'll go with the Cougs.
I agree on Houston. Also because, they only won by 1 over UCF, but they shot like 3 for 16 from 3. And this is a good shooting team. Like you can say what you want about Houston, their offense. I don't love how they run offense, but they should shoot 40% from 3 for the rest of the year. And I've been out on UConn since Breeze. You and I did that Feast Week pod. Like I was out on this team before the season. I don't think they have great guard play. I don't love their center rotation. The Zags, I was all the way in on the Zags in the preseason because I thought that their experience, their returning production, their continuity, I thought they would roll, and they have been probably the least impressive team relative to expectation this year. I still trust Houston because, that defense gives you such a high floor. And Kelvin Sampson is, still one of the best to do it. So,
yeah, I think I probably agree with you, but there's definitely just trouble. Like, Houston is going to be an analytical darling. We know that. And Gonzaga is probably going to be up there as well. But just look at, especially Gonzaga. I mean, how many times can you blow a lead before I have to just say, this isn't bad luck, this is a trend? I watched them try to close out games. Then losing to Oregon State, and then coming back at home, losing to Santa Clara, that never happened in the past under Few. So, yeah, there's definitely something off with all three teams. I mean, maybe I'd just say, look, it's Hurley. They're going to get McNeely back, who I do think matters. This is a team that lost so much. So, like, you expect them and Hurley to figure it out and them to address some of their issues. Their staff is so good. So it'd be between them, those two. But I'll agree with you guys. Make it a clean sweep on Houston. Cowboys, before I get to you, we got to give Tanner shit for convincing us all to bet UMBC. So Saturday afternoon, sit down. I have like a bunch of bets at the same time. So I got to pull up a stream on UMBC. I went and made a drink first. And so, it's UMBC Maine. I missed the first 3 minutes. Who cares? I missed the first 3 minutes. It's 15-0 Maine. So, what happened there?
Yeah, I made my America East debut talking about how much I love the Retrievers, and Maine started the game on a 12-0 run, won by 1 million. And it sucks, man, because I've been a defender.
Baltimore ruined my ball. I'm a Ravens fan. On Sunday, I get heartbroken. On Saturday, at least it was quick and painless with Baltimore County.
It was so early. I mean, look, I've been a defender of head coach Jim Ferry since he took over, really. I've been in the minority, actually, because I thought he did a great job with the roster he had last year and a solid job in the non-con. But I heard some rumors out there that he was on the hot seat, which I thought was ridiculous. But losing to dreadful New Hampshire as a double-digit home favorite and then following it up by no showing again at home, I'm starting to understand the rumors. They threw the ball away 19 times. It was truly embarrassing. I mean, on the other hand, Maine's head coach, Chris Markwood, he's probably the best head coach in that league. I mean, Maine is still shooting way above their head. They shot 11 for 23 from deep in that win. But Markwood's game planning was just superb in the early going. I mean, he was so smart to full court press UMBC, took them out of their tempo, funneling more offense through their center, Keelan Steele, who finished with, I think, 12 points on perfect shooting. And, the point remains, pathetic performance from Ferry and the Retrievers, horrific call by me, and excited for segment number 2 this upcoming week.
We'll be tailing. But if you keep giving us UMBC, we might start fading. No, trust, I bet Arkansas on Saturday. So my article got picked up by some of the fan bases. Oh my God, they're so annoying. My article got picked up by like all these Mizzou fans and Mizzou bloggers. They like screenshotted me saying, I don't expect Missouri to keep shooting this well from 3. And then they shot 50% from 3. But Arkansas's a bad call anyway. I mean, but they went 5 of 23 from 3. Missouri went 11 of 23. There's your 18-point difference. It doesn't mean it's going to happen that one game. I just mean that I don't think Missouri's going to keep shooting this well. And I said I don't think Caleb Grill's going to keep shooting this well. Obviously, he had an incredible game. So, I thought Arkansas was... They went with the lineup that I wanted, the starting lineup that I wanted. And didn't matter. Another embarrassing performance for Coach Cal. But, it's not working. But they're also getting unlucky from a shooting perspective. But that doesn't mean it's going to come. There's something that's just off with that Arkansas team. And credit to Missouri for keeping it rolling. But you just got to live with that stuff. You're going to have bad calls and get called out and just laugh. I just replied, I was wrong. Sorry. That's all you got to do. Calabrese, you want to yell about some coaches?
I do. I also just want to be a part of this support group for getting burned by a 3-point variance monster.
Elon. Are you talking about Elon? They had a shot to tie it or win it at the end.
They had a shot to win it.
They were down to like 11 with a minute to go, and they almost won.
Delaware made 11 of their first 16 threes. That's fantastic. I'm out with the wife trying to be a supportive husband. I don't, have my eye on the game for the first 5 minutes, and I'm immediately getting blown up on social media. I mean, that was horrific. And also, I'm shouting out the Twin Towers, Sam Sherry and Van Komen. It's a walking block party. 0 blocks out of the 6'11" and 7'3" front court monsters for the Phoenix. And then they still almost win the game. I would rather go through with the UMBC experience and know at halftime that it's truly over. Yeah, I'm going to go back to
Delaware. It was an epic meltdown.
Yeah.
And
Delaware's not very good. That's the frustrating part.
They were up 20 with 10 to go. I think they're up like 11 with a minute to go, and then they missed a free throw. Elon had a 3
turnovers
to win it, and then they had another shot to tie it. John Camden had an incredible game for Delaware, but the Va Tech transfer from Downingtown. By the way, speaking of Downingtown, it's a good weekend for Downingtown. Will Howard went to Downingtown West. Just won the national championship. But what else you got?
Just the quick rants on the whining temper tantrums of Dan Hurley and Mick Cronin. Like, before I got full-time into sports media, I used to work in content for startups, for medium-sized companies. And the last couple that I had, I would work with like the C-suite, the CEOs, and ghostwrite for them. And all the good leaders, they'd always say, like, if you want these jobs, it's all about just fixing problems. Just problem solving is what your job is at that level. And they're big problems, but that's, the buck stops at the top. This is what you get paid to do. Not every year is you win the national championship and you win 17 of the last 18 games with a perfectly constructed roster. This is also your fault, Dan Hurley. This is the NIL portal era. You brought in the wrong pieces. I understand they've had some injuries, but there were issues with this team from the jump. And then Mick Cronin, just stuff it, man. Like, I've had enough of it. Oh, we had to travel. Everyone knows that you control the narrative. Yes, you have these brutal cross-country road trips. You could, spell it out to your team and say, we're going to be battle-tested by the time we get to Indianapolis for the Big Ten tournament. By the time we get sent probably cross-country for March Madness, we'll be able to do it, and other teams will be complaining. No, it's just every game. Even when they win, he wants to pick fights with the media. It's like, how small are you as a human being that this is what's front of mind for you? He makes $4.5 million after bonuses per season. Hurley is on a new $60 or $50 million contract. You have the best job in the world when you're winning and days are good. And then the bad days, you get paid millions of dollars per year to do it. So I just don't understand why these guys act like they're stuck in some dead end corporate America job and they're just a cubicle monkey and they want to blow their brains out. No, you are not. You have a great job. Just like get past this and maybe, I don't know, help your players get past it. Because at first, I think people on social media and in general, they want to say, well, maybe they're trying to light a fire under their team. Trying to do it in the same way repeatedly and kind of throwing your team under the bus as Cronin does, it's old hat. It's not working. And it does make it a little bit more fun for me because UCLA in the Big Ten, if you told me that 2 years ago, I would say they probably have the least interest in what they're doing in football and basketball. But now I can at least hate watch the Bruins on a weekly basis because of what he's doing on the sideline. So that's it for my rant, but just unbelievable that these two, and the last piece, Hurley needs to get ejected. I don't understand what these referees are doing. They just eat shit from him constantly over calls that are at worst 50-50 calls. He acts like he's the only coach in America that doesn't get the whistle every single time. So that's it for me, but they get my chili running hot here in January.
Cronin just seems like he doesn't have any fun. Like he's not enjoying
I know. It's like, sorry, bud, you almost won a national championship. That was a great team that you put together, with your front court and everything, that classic against, the Zags. And like I said, you're probably going to end your career, with $50 million in the bank, being a guy who's an above average coach. He's not like in the pantheon. He's not in the top 10 coaches in the sport, but he's going to end with just an absolute war chest of money. And if he just kept his head down and his mouth shut, I think people would kind of respect him as a tactician a little bit. But he's just basically lighting all the goodwill on fire at this point.
Make extra money daily from your sports betting? Stuckey from Action Network here. I'm always about finding ways to take sports betting to the next level. And that's exactly why I'm pumped to tell you about Edgeboost, the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edgeboost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit. With the Edgeboost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. That's free money back in your pocket just for doing whatever you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edgeboost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit and will never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. So stop leaving free money on the table. Visit Edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today. That's Edgeboost.bet. All right, let's get to midweek. Some midweek action. Calabrese, I'm going to start with some Patriot League.
All right in my wheelhouse. Let's do this.
I'm curious to get your thoughts. I'm going to play Lehigh if Keith Higgins plays.
Yes, I mean they have a phenomenal backcourt when healthy.
I can't get info on him. I've been messaging so many people. I don't know when he's coming back. Every game it's a game time decision, but they've lost 5 in a row. Guess what? It's the 5 games that he's missed, and he is so important to everything that they do. He played versus Bucknell in their first conference game. They won that game. Been hurt ever since, lost 5 in a row. So if you see me put a bet in on the app on Lehigh, tomorrow, that means I got confirmation that Higgins is going to play. If not, I'll get confirmation the same time as everybody else, but I'll try to find out. On the same, kind of in the same vein, your alma mater, Loyola Maryland, I'm looking to fade them against Lafayette because you look, they've won. They beat Army by 2. They lost Army. They beat Navy by 1 at home, and they beat Lehigh without Higgins. That's their 3 wins in league play. I am not a believer in this team whatsoever. And then you have Lafayette, who's dropped 2 in a row. I think that I have them, 3 points better than Loyola Maryland. And Loyola Maryland's home court advantage, sorry, Calabrese,
0.
I have
absolutely. Reed's Arena is laughable. There'll be 40 people attached to the program there, no bands. Yeah, it's the program will never go anywhere until they fix that, or at least do some kind of timeshare in downtown Baltimore, play at I think it's the Royal Farms Arena. They need to do that. My only thing here in this game,
but just close up my thoughts. Lafayette lost by 1 to Navy. They lost in overtime to Bucknell. They lost by 2 to Army, and so they've been super unlucky. Then they got blown out by Colgate. I think you get a really good effort here, and I think Loyola Maryland, who's terrible and everyone agrees is terrible, their metrics, overall and their record are just bumped up even a little bit because Lehigh didn't have Higgins, and they have to play him twice in the span of a week without him, and he's as important to any team at this level. But what were you going to say?
I think it'll just come down to Justin Vanderbond for Lafayette and the Illich twins, because if he plays really well and stays out of foul trouble on the Lafayette side, I agree with you. I think they'll probably win by close to double digits. But there have been games where he's got himself into foul trouble, and that I really think is the only advantage that the Leopards have to be able to really press and easy second chance buckets. So I find this to be incredibly unlikely. But if you're watching this game and you're looking for a live betting angle, then just make sure to keep an eye on him in terms of his foul trouble. If he goes to the bench early, maybe try to buy out of it a little bit. But if he plays, let's call it north of 30 minutes, I like that play. Stuck.
Yeah, need Illich in there.
Hey, Patriot League thoughts. I was thinking about betting Holy Cross hosting Army tomorrow. Any thoughts?
I haven't looked at it.
So, yeah, I think they're an auto fade at this point.
Well, you got to – they have one of the best – they have one of the – I shouldn't say the best, but they have one of Jalen Ruckers.
Yeah.
He can go absolutely off. But what are you saying?
Just buy low. They've lost 3 in a row. Army's off a few wins. I kind of like the schematic matchup. They're only laying 1. I don't know. Just wanted Bree's thoughts.
I could say it. It would be Holy Cross or nothing. I think it's a good spot. So I think you're on the right track there. Is there a line out yet?
Yeah, -1.5 Holy Cross.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, fire that one in.
What else? Ken, I'll go to you. What are you looking at Wednesday? You're looking at the Corn at home?
Yeah, I actually didn't love this Wednesday slate, but as long as Nebraska doesn't open up something crazy like -9 or something, I'll probably be on the Cornhuskers here at home against USC. Nebraska has to win a game eventually after 4 straight losses, including 2 by 1 possession, a third that went to overtime. Those 4 opponents shot a combined 58 for 122 from 3. It's 48%. So I think there's some positive regression coming. I think this is a good buy low spot at home. Meanwhile, USC has been playing a lot better lately. I mean, Musselman is starting to build real cohesion and continuity with the squad, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I don't want to get...
He kind of altered the lineup a bit and how they're playing.
Yeah, but I don't want to get too high on them, especially after they shot the lights out against a lifeless Iowa defense and they caught Illinois shorthanded, obviously. And I really hate this matchup for the Trojans. They're an interior-based offense. They love creating off the dribble with, Claude, Yates, Thomas. They'll run a lot of cutting off that creation with Noling, Cohen. They'll run a lot of DHO posting sets, and they love the mid-range. They live in the mid-range. So I think they score 35 paint points per game and rank last in the Big Ten in three-point rate. But Fred Hoiberg packs it in more than anyone on defense. The Huskers' MO is a complete and total post denial. They rank.
Yeah, that's why they can get 3-point variance in any game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that could swing. But, they rank top 20 nationally in paint points per game allowed, bottom 10 in three-point rate allowed. And so you have to beat the Huskers over the top and with efficient catch and shoot creation. The Trojans will not do that. and it's going to be really tough for them to run their offense against this set defense. And on the other end of the court, Nebraska's going to run their secondary dribble handoff, inside out offense, and I think they'll be able to do that. I mean, in theory, USC's kind of versatile switching defense, they could switch all those actions, but it's not like the Trojans have been that good on defense this year. They've been gashed at the rim. They're allowing a ton of threes. They don't grade out well against handoff secondary actions. The problem with Nebraska is Bryce Williams has to be just an electric factory for this offense to be really good.
Yeah.
But he's more efficient at home than he is on the road, and he's been really efficient in ball screen creation this year, which is a very vulnerable part of the USC defense. So I'd love to see plenty of that. I just think behind Williams and a strong defensive effort, I'm banking on Nebraska snapping the 4-game losing streak in convincing fashion. I would love to get like 5 or fewer, but 6 or 7, that's good with me.
Yeah, Nebraska usually a wagon at home, although they were recently upset, especially in conference play. Looks like a pretty good spot and matchup. Calabrese, I agree with you, Tanner, that the Wednesday card is pretty gross. One of the uglier Wednesday cards for January that I've seen. Calabrese, I'm surprised, number one, you didn't mention in the bad your Delta Devils, Mississippi Valley State. They're the Miami of the low majors. Where's the bottom? I mean, they lost by 30 to Florida A&M last night.
I'm going to find a spot this year to play them. I just haven't figured it out yet. I'm trying to look, 6 moves ahead on the chessboard to find some kind of situational angle that maybe they can play a little bit better. I am glad that we are 1-0 on our SWAC plays for the year, hitting that over between Arkansas Pine Bluff and Florida A&M. I think we got 15 points in the last minute and 10 seconds to push that one over the top. So I appreciate the work by the Golden Lions and Rattlers. I was close. I agree with you that this card is rough, but I do have one on Wednesday that I like. North Texas laying, let's call it 8 or 9 against Temple. Temple's still riding high. 2 games ago, they upset Memphis. They avoid the letdown against Tulane, but they're walking in against an exceptionally well-coached North Texas team under Ross Hodge. He has been a really good home bet as a home favorite since taking over in Denton, the 3rd most profitable coach in the AAC. And for people who aren't familiar with their brand of basketball, they're the Virginia of the American, the old school Virginia, no middle defense. They rotate exceptionally well. Temple has been shooting out of their minds so far in AAC play and far above what you can expect out of the Owls over the course of the entire season. And I just don't think North Texas is going to give them many open looks and good looks from 3-point range. And when you look at it, it's not just getting the variance luck in terms of 3-pointers not falling. They're not even allowing opponents to put them up. Fewer than 20 3-point attempts per game, which is 34th in the whole country. I like them to basically squeeze Temple in 3 ways. They're the defense that I just discussed. Rebounding, they're 29th in defensive rebounding percentage this year, the mean green, and they are an elite foul shooting team. When I'm looking for them to close this out in the last couple minutes of this game, they're 15th nationally as a team in terms of their percentage from the charity stripe. So I'm going to go with the mean green. As I said, I'd love to get 8. I'll lay up to 9 in this spot against the Owls, the long AAC road trip.
Temple's also shooting like 45% from 3 in AAC play. That's
and
not
North
happen.
Texas is allowing 40%, which is very rare for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Temple's going to dominate the offensive glass. They've done a really good job in that, but in this particular matchup, so if that 2-way regression hits, they could be toast. By the way, Temple, they had those allegations about shaving, and then we had them with a MAC school recently. Remind me when these reports come out it's the next game to bet that team first half. Because you're like, all right, everyone's on to us. We have to play the best half of our lives to make sure we can't not cover this first half, guys. And then their profile's probably not fully accounted for because they've had guys that were shaving. I don't know. That's always an angle I thought about. Moving on to Thursday, Tanner, you have one that I had circled. I have a list of my major regression candidates. I have my team at the top right now, as Peyton Manning would say, Omaha, Omaha. I have them as number 1, and they're taking on a St. Thomas team that should be able to potentially bring some of that regression home. I think they're the class of the league, and this is a matchup of 2 undefeated teams in the Summit. You like the Tommies as well?
Yeah, love the Tommies. And I mean, shout out to the Mavericks for starting Summit League play 5-0. But like you said,
after losing Fiddler, who's been great for Michigan State.
Yeah, they've been awesome this year. But yeah, no, it's not sustainable when you're shooting in conference play 45% from three while opponents are shooting 31%. That 3-point
and you
delta.
can look at the profile of their players. I mean, because sometimes people will always say like, "Oh, this team's shooting this," but like, where is their level supposed to be? You can look at their players' historical 3-point shooting. They're all way over their heads. So yeah, there's major regression coming.
You can also look at their shot diet, their profile. I mean, they live in the mid-range. They rank second to last in the Summit League in rim and 3 rate. You spend all your time in the mid-range. You're not creating good shots, and you're just shooting 45% from 3. No way. That is going to come.
And it's a bad 2-point offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's going to come crashing down. And you're right. The Tommies are an unbelievable rim and 3 based offense. They are, I think, second nationally in rim and 3 rate. And yes, they're shooting the lights out from 3, but they just generate so many good looks. And on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're due for a little bit of positive 3-point regression on defense. And they actually are surprisingly doing a solid job, quote unquote, of denying mid-range attempts, which isn't efficient, but like when that's where Omaha wants to work, I like that matchup. And Nebraska Omaha on defense, they ranked sub 300 nationally in rim and 3 points per possession allowed, which is a terrible matchup for a Tommies team that just is so well run. I agree. Tommies are the class of the Summit League. I think that they hand the Mavericks a well-deserved regression loss here, even on the road. And I'm hoping we get like a short line on the road, like maybe like -1, -2. That'd be nice. But yeah.
Yeah, would love
Shout
that.
out to John Tower, too, their head coach.
Yeah, great Princeton stuff that he runs.
Just phenomenal stuff and just a winner. I mean, he took him from D3 up to this level. He won a national title at that level, another Final Four. I think like 80% of the time he coached, they won a regular season title. So it goes to show that there's still people, even in the transfer portal era, they're not just essentially general managers with a roster. He can actually coach them up. So I think this is the year that they punch through. I agree with you. This is the time. It's still, I think you're getting a reasonable price on them. They're not being taxed as though they're the top team in the Summit. They should be. You
have something in the Summit too, right, Mike?
I do. I can flip these around. I'll go with the Summit play first. South Dakota State laying 3.5 on the road at UMKC. I think the Roos are just going to get worked by Oscar Clough in this one as long as he can avoid foul trouble. They're 330th in 2-point percentage defense. He's an old school big, like a rec league kind of guy. He's got a full bag. He's got all these low post moves, and he's the best offensive rebounder in the Summit. When you look at his last 5 games, he's averaging 19 and 14 per game. He's an absolute beast. And I think the Roos are in a skid right now. They've lost 3 straight. And if South Dakota State makes this up tempo the way that they want to and high scoring, I just don't think KC has the shooters to hang around here. So I would probably lay up to just the edge of 2 possessions at 3.5. That at least is the projection on Torvik and Evan Mia right now. I love the Jacks.
And Tanner, do you have something Georgia State Marshall? You got anything there?
Yeah, I think this is a really good spot for Georgia State to bounce back. Coming home after back-to-back road losses, the Panthers have won and covered all 3 home games before that 2-game road skid. And I'm banking on a Marshall letdown after they beat Coastal last Saturday. The Herd are a horrific road team. They're a good home team, but they are just abhorrent on the road. I think they're 1-7 straight up, 2-6 against the spread on the road. They're 316th nationally in Haslam metrics away from home metric. They beat and covered against Coastal mostly because of some favorable shooting variance, which they've been getting so far in conference play. They're shooting 35% from 3 while opponents are shooting 27%. And I expect that to flip. Same thing for the Panthers, as they've only shot 28% from 3 in conference play. So I think this is a good buy low, sell high spot to snag a home dog, catching hopefully 4 or better. And just quickly from a schematic perspective, I've been really unimpressed with the Thundering Herd offense so far. Just spamming middle pick and roll with 0 spacing. They can't really get to the rim because the lanes are so crowded. They end up in the mid-range way too often. And Georgia State's been not a good ball screen coverage unit, but they've been a good ball screen denial unit because they mix in some zone and kind of muck it up underneath. And they never foul, which is good to keep Marshall off of the charity stripe.
Yeah.
And Georgia State on the other end of the court, they play almost exclusively through the post, and they will have a big size advantage over the Marshall interior. And you can just post and repost the herd over and over. They rank third to last in the Sun Belt in 2-point shooting allowed and allow the most post-up points per game. They defend the three well, but they just funnel everything down low, and they can't stop it. So I like the spot. I like the matchup, and hopefully we get a good number once the market opens.
Calabrese, Merrimack, and St. Peter's.
I'm going to go with the full...
Total what, 118 in this game?
Yeah. I think, what is it? What's the game show with Steve Harvey? Family Feud. If you asked 100 Americans, if you asked 100 college basketball fans the following question, where is Merrimack located? What's their nickname? And what conference do they play in? I don't know. What would you get? 2 out of 100, they're going to be able to come up with North Andover, Mass, right below New Hampshire. They're the Warriors. They're playing in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, the MAC. And this is the second year that they're eligible for the NIT NCAA tournament. So it's clear they're still...
And it's your most zone-heavy team in the country on defense. It's your new, it's the new Syracuse.
So here we are. The new Syracuse is working. They're 6-1 in MAC play. They're a top 3 defensive team with that structure. And they have the best player in the MAC in Bud Clark. I still think this could be a defensive battle, but St. Pete's can't shoot. They're 344th in shooting percentage. They struggle in the defensive glass, and they are super sloppy with the basketball. Nearly 19% of their possessions end in turnovers, which is just horrific. So second chance buckets, big turnover advantage. As I mentioned, Bud Clark averaging 19, 7, and 4 in conference play. Evan Mia has him rated as the second best low major playmaker in the entire country, behind second mention of Barrington Hargress of UC Riverside in one episode. So got to make sure to give that guy his flowers as well. But if this is anything other than, we'll call it Merrimack laying 3, I don't think it'll ever get to that price, but I would play it up to 1 possession.
Yeah, I mean, Merrimack's not just they'll pressure too in their zone. So St. Peter's gonna have a ton of turnovers here. The only thing I would worry about is if the game is so ugly and St. Peter's just gets like 30 offensive rebounds against the zone. But from a shot volume perspective, Merrimack might be able to just make up for all of that with the turnovers because they're not going to turn it over, and St. Peter's will probably turn it over a bunch. By the way, teams like Merrimack are the exact teams that I want to get into the NCAA tournament. I want teams with wildly unique profiles that play unique schemes that can give us like some fascinating matchups.
And nobody can figure out the Joe Gallo zone. I mean,
especially if you don't see it.
Yeah, they went to the NEC. They won the league in their first year, and then they realigned to the Metro Atlantic this past year, and now they're the class of the MAC. I mean, nobody can figure it out. I assume eventually coaches will adjust, but yeah, that zone plus Bud Clark, who I just am in love with every time I watch him. So yeah, I'll probably play this with you actually.
And it's redemption time. We'll close out here. Tanner, to your beloved America East, this is where we'll finish. New Hampshire, they've been playing a little better of late, maybe starting to figure some things out. I mean, I'm not going to give them too much credit, but they just did lose at NJIT. But before that, they won at UMBC, although maybe that's not a good win anymore. And they beat Binghamton. So it showed some signs of life of late. They will host Bryant on Thursday. Bryant, fresh off they're an impressive streak. They've won 4 straight, including, they dominated Vermont. And they've won them all by double digits. And then UMass Lowell. This was a highly anticipated game, and Bryant ended up winning by 23. Are you looking to potentially buy the Wildcats here?
Yeah, I always have to have some Amy's thoughts when I come on the pod. Yeah, I'm going to get snake bitten for this, but I'm still not totally in on the Bulldogs. They have looked, like you mentioned it, they've looked dominant, absolutely dominant for 4 games. But they also played 3 of the 4 at home, and they've been much, much, much worse on the road this year. 4-7 against the spread, 304th in Haslametrics away from home metric. And I still wonder if the offense is sustainable. Just so much running into the middle of the floor and hitting floaters or runners. Pinzone makes it much more sustainable, but how long can he shoot over 50% from 3? The newfound offensive rebounding prowess, that really changes the dynamic. But the their numbers there might be a tad inflated after they grabbed 17 against Lowell, which has a bad rebounding problem. They're in trouble because they can't rebound. New Hampshire has looked like a totally different team lately. And the two things that are really important is the interior defense against UMBC and Binghamton, who both of those teams will try and crash the rim downhill like Bryant will, really impressed me. Holding that duo to like 47% shooting, that was unheard of before conference play started. I didn't think that was possible. And point guard Sammy Pieces has been unconscious. He's just been dragging the Wildcats and keeping them competitive in these games. He's been among the most impressive JUCO transfers at the low major level for me, for a terrible New Hampshire team, but he's been awesome. If we can get some crazy inflated number because everyone is so enamored with Bryant right now, like maybe 15, even 17, something crazy. Yeah, I would take a shot with New Hampshire.
Not getting 17.
Yeah, but 15.
Yeah, could get 15. All right. I'll probably join you with this so I can give you shit if it loses or credit if it wins. But Bryant, are you underselling Bryant's defense?
The problem is, so I love their defensive structure and the way that PMJ has adjusted it to where they just funnel everything towards the rim, and then they have 5 dudes who all stand like 6'7" that can block everything. But the defense looked honestly kind of bad in the non-con, like way worse metrics. And then all of a sudden they've self-corrected in conference play. So I just don't know which version is. I don't know if they're going to regress to the mean or if they have self-corrected entirely. So I got to see more.
I give you credit. A week after, 5 days after UMBC, you give out arguably how. So tell me how the path for New Hampshire to score here. Sammy's got to hit. He's got to hit he's got to score 35 points and hit like all of his threes. But he can do it, man. He when he gets hot, he gets crazy hot. All right, good stuff, gentlemen. Mike, myself, and Greg will be back on Thursday to preview the weekend, and Tanner will join for his second America East segment, previewing the Saturday America East games. Thank you to both of you for joining me. Thanks to our producer, David, on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe. Tell a friend, tell an enemy. You know the drill. Good luck on all of your wagers the next 2 nights. We'll catch y'all later in the week. Cheers.